You are listening to the Intercoastal Podcast, part of the Destination Marketing Podcast Network. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Intercoastal Podcast, brought to you live from Beaufort, South Carolina. We're excited to jump right back in and talk about all the awesome things that Beaufort has to offer. Today, we're joined by Robb Wells from Visit Beaufort. Thanks for being with us today, Robb.
Oh, thanks for having me. Such a fun time being able to share all things Beaufort.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on here again. So you mentioned that it's getting pretty warm there.
Yeah, it's been a warm spring here, and that's a good thing. I mean, a spring or a warm spring is not a bad thing. It gets you on the water. Um, you get to have some cool delicacies from the sea a little earlier, and hopefully get a chance to chat about that a little bit later. But listen, when you're living the intercoastal lifestyle, and visitors are coming your area and they want to be a part of that, warm weather sure does help.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, it was like 39, 40 degrees yesterday here, so I'm a little jealous of your warm weather right now.
Yeah, that sounds like the heart of winter here, and we don't really talk about that time period very often. But it's been hanging out in the 70s, the 80s, and you know, get a little rain here and there, but it's good
Oh,
stuff.
that sounds so nice.
It is.
I would love to have like a 70-degree day. That's my dream temperature right there.
Well, yeah, I get it. So, like, when it's Easter,
Mm-hmm.
it's seersucker season. It's flip flops. It's of course, like most people. Does anybody really ever put their flip flops up for their season? Not around here. We don't. Got to keep those things out and ready to go whenever. So it's a good time of year.
My brother would love to be down there. He wears flip-flops year-round. He moved to Texas a couple of years ago, so he can do that. But in Utah, when it snows, he would still be wearing flip-flops, and we all thought he was crazy. So
Yeah, well, I mean,
definitely.
yeah, it's definitely a fashion statement, and you're committed to it if you're wearing it out there in the frozen tundra. But here in South Carolina, flip flops are a necessity.
Oh, I believe it. So you said that there's a lot of food that, or like seafood that's still kind of a delicacy during this time period?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is. Let's be honest. The seafood scene is pretty prominent here, and come March, April,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how warm it is, you're going to get something that I find to be some of the best eats across the country. The soft shell crab,
Ooh,
as we call it here, is a culinary term for a crab that's kind of like shed its exoskeleton, if you will, and they're still kind of
interesting.
soft.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I know it sounds like, wait a minute, what? But this is something that around these parts is pretty good eating, and I think most people who come to the area during this time period will find that it is one of the best meals that they'll have.
Okay, I'm intrigued though. How do you eat a soft shell crab? Because if its shell is soft, or it doesn't really have one right now, you can't really crack it open like you do with normal crab.
That's
So
right.
how does that work?
That's right. So let's say I guess the term is it's molting, right? I guess I think, and so the soft shells are removed from the soft shell crabs are removed from the water as soon as they start this molting process, so that the shells don't harden back up. And basically, it means that the entire animal, the entire crab can be eaten as opposed to just like shelling it, right?
Wait,
And
like the legs too?
oh yeah,
And like everything?
the whole thing. And
Interesting.
here's the deal: you can either saute it, you can grill it, or like I like it, you can deep fry it. And
True
those
Southern way right there.
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. It's a good way to enjoy it. So I say the soft shell crab is one of my favorite foods, and it is this part of the time period. I actually came to Beaufort to take this post, and it's been some years now. But my very first meal in Beaufort was a soft shell crab sandwich and
Ooh.
pickles. I know, sounds
I
tremendous,
mean,
right?
I like pickles.
Yeah,
So
yeah, pickles are great, but you get the soft shell crab sandwich, as they call it. There's no sandwich; it's a sandwich with a little bit of pickles, and you get some tea. And by tea, I mean sweet tea, right? Just for
yeah, the sweet
clarification.
iced tea.
That's right. So just tea here, and then you mix it with a little lemonade, a little Arnold Palmer action, and you call me back later and you'll tell me how good it is, because that is the meal I recommend for anybody trying soft shell crabs for the first time. Now, there are many ways that you can do it, and we have restaurants who do it their way and their uniqueness, if you will.
Uh-huh.
But here's the deal: if you get into fixing your own food, Sea Market can help you out during this time period. But if you want to find them and get some, there are a list of tremendous restaurants in Beaufort that will put the soft shell crab on the menu. And spring in Beaufort is enhanced by their delicacies.
So is spring the only time you can really get the
It
soft shell
is.
crab?
It is, yes. It is
That makes
specific.
sense.
Yeah, it's specific to March. You may find some in June, but it's really basically when the water temperatures are right for this process for the blue crab.
Okay.
So it has to be in that springtime zone. So, for example, if the weather is warm, then you're going to get an early March is a good spot. If the water gets cold, if the weather gets cold, if there's a cold snap, and there always seems to be one, it'll push it back to April, May. But we'll say
Okay.
March to June. You may find June sometimes, but
So I'm curious, if someone doesn't like crab, do you think they would like soft shell crab?
um, I think that it offers it in a different way. I think people will, once they can get past the look and feel of it, that may be a stumbling block for somebody. Um, but putting it on two pieces of bread usually will curb the scene, and putting it with a good tartar sauce or a little horseradish or whatever. I mean, it's gonna be
Okay.
tremendous. Actually, we talk about food a little bit here in this space, man. I absolutely love it, and been doing this soft shell crab takeout. It's pretty good.
It sounds good.
It's really good.
I'm getting hungry just talking about
Yeah,
it.
I would encourage people to give it a try. And if you don't like soft shell crab, hit me up. You can email me directly and tell me your what you liked or didn't like about it, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Are you going to give us your email so that we can make sure that people can
You can
email you
always
directly?
email me at Rob with two B's at BeaufortSC.org and tell me what you think about not only the show, but the foods that we're discussing or recipes. Shoot, I'll send you my personal recipe for some of these dishes. But yeah, Rob, ROBB at BeaufortSC.org. Yeah, hit me up.
There you go. So where's the best place to, like, if you wanted to catch them on your own? Is that something that people do?
Yeah, they do. Crabbing in Beaufort is a unique scene just because it's different for different people. It's one of those things, and it doesn't have to be just spring, but crabbing in Beaufort takes on a life of itself. So you will find locals, docks and bridge crossings and down on waterfront occasionally, but usually on the back creeks, and they will be tossing their crab pots out for those who want to collect a little bit for the family. That's what my family does. We actually love throwing the crab pot out and letting it sit for 24, 48 hours. But you know what? My kids, I loved being able to teach my girls and soon my sons, but how to crab. Basically taking a string, a chicken neck, put a little weight on there at the end, let it drip to the bottom, hold the string tight,
Okay.
right? And then wrap it over your index finger and let it sit. And you will feel the gentle tug of the string against your finger. Now, here's the trick. Now it's time to pull up very slowly, very slowly. Now, my girls have their little butterfly nets, and I would, recommend a butterfly net or a bucket of some sort. But you got to be able to scoop underneath, and as you get it to the surface, you'll see a blue crab hanging from the chicken neck or the bait. In this case, use the net to pull it up, and if it fits 5 inches and is a male, we toss back the females always, but keep the males that are at 5 inches in
Okay.
length from tip to tip. Put it in your bucket and go again. And that, my friend, is crabbing. And what we have found is that people from other parts of the country that come to our area, this is one of those things that they want to take in. I see people all the time in our little visitor center asking where they can crab and how do they go about it.
I
And
bet.
what's funny is that and I tell this story about crabbing in general, but we had some folks come in the visitor center, and they were going to be here for for a long week. And so we were sharing with them, like, here's some techniques that this would do, but bait's important. So you're going to, well, lo and behold, I'm going home. I going home, I have to stop by the store, and who's in the store looking and for chicken necks, but the same group of people that were in the visitor center. It doesn't sound like much, right? But if you've ever looked at someone's eyes when they caught their first fish, or in this case, they've caught something from the sea in the form of a blue crab, um, it's a pretty awesome event. And one for me personally to get to see my kids do it and they catch their first crab and now they do it. And you know what? They're going to share that experience with their friends. They're going to share their experience with their family members who don't live here. And eventually they're going to pass that along at some point to their kids. It's one of those traditions that it was shown to me as a youngin, and now I'm showing it to my young kids, and hopefully one day they'll share it there and passed on. But here's the thing: it's not a commercial way to fish. It's just a crab. It's just a way for you to enjoy it with a family setting, get near the water, and it's a unique way to experience the low country life here in Beaufort, South Carolina.
That's awesome. I do have one more question about these soft shell crabs and crabbing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do they still have their, like, what are they called? Their claws, their
Yeah,
pinchers,
yeah, it's the
whatever?
whole shell.
I can't think what the
Yeah, the
term
pincher,
is.
the claw. Yeah, they shell the whole exoskeleton. Everything about the crab is soft at this point. And that's why it's so important when you catch them. It's you're basically the shell is hard, right? There's some work involved, right, to get to the lump meat and the
Right.
claws. And listen, I love a blue crab better than the next man. I love them. Yeah, Old Bay, Zartans, whatever you're going to put on them to get the seasoning right. I prefer to steam um, my blue crab, but
Okay.
that's to each their own. People boil them. There's some local spots here that have some recipes that they don't share. Some garlic crabs, some heavy on the butter. I mean, just there's some great crab recipes out there. But when it comes to soft shell crab, like I said, it's usually grilled, sauteed, or deep fried. Um, I would tend to go to the deep fried route, but there are grilled options for those. Shoot, I've seen them at the Soft Shell Crab Festival in Port Royal. You will find them on hamburgers. You'll find them paired with hush puppies. You'll find them paired with sweet potato fries. You name it. But I prefer mine on a sandwich with a little bit of tartar sauce and some pickles. And to me, that's a tremendous, tremendous meal.
It sounds good. I just was like wondering because I know that if you're trying to catch a crab with its hard shell, the claws can pinch you and it hurts sometimes. So if they don't have that, would it still hurt or no?
No,
Have you ever been pinched by
oh, I've
one?
been pinched by a blue crab. Yes, yes, I have. Um, and here's the tip that I will give you in this podcast in space. If you're ever get pinched by a blue crab on the claw, don't pull it off of you. Hold your hand out as much as it may be painful and let it dangle. It will release. But by pulling it, there's a tension there and it will rip. It will rip. And that's not something we want to, get too much into. Let it dangle. It's a pro tip. You'll thank me later. Dangling, they'll let go. You won't be harmed. It'll just pinch for a little bit and that's it. But let me give one tip to listeners who are looking for soft shell crab in there. If you go to a restaurant up and down the East Coast, okay, that serves soft shell crab, here's my tip: when the season is in, when it starts, it's a day-to-day venture because the provider of said crab, since it is a in the moment type supply system. If a restaurant doesn't have a supply problem with the soft shell crab, they're not local nor are they fresh. But if a restaurant, if it is day to day and they do have a supply, they're getting fresh off the catch soft shell crabs. And that's what you want to look for. Fresh off the catch.
Good to
So we
know.
recommend people checking these restaurants, calling ahead, ask the waitress, or the server. Ask them. Say, hey, listen, you know, do y'all have soft shell crab? When did you get them? Right? And they will tell you, oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, we got them this morning. Or, this is it. And you want to check the freshness around because that's a big deal. Because fresh crab are local.
I'm sure they make a difference too in flavor and taste.
Always. Yeah, you don't have to, it is what it is, but it's good. Also, some things that you can do is you want to if you're going to do it yourself, you want to make sure that you get some cheese involved. You want to get some soft shell crab dip made. There's some different ways to go about it. But like I said, it's fun to not only catch blue crab, but also to partake in the spring soft shell crab delicacy.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, Rob. And as we mentioned before, speaking of crabbing, the Port Royal Sound Foundation Maritime Center is an awesome place to learn more about
Oh yeah,
the crab
it
wildlife
is.
and everything. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the Port Royal Sound is the large body of water that Beaufort and Port Royal and the Sea Islands is a part of the ACE Basin. So giving people an idea on the map of what it looks like here, the Port Royal Sound is this large body of water that connects us with the ocean. It is also one of the most pristine waters along the East Coast, and it is a tremendous natural asset that we have here. And the Port Royal Sound Foundation's Maritime Center is the educational component and place where visitors can congregate and go visit and learn more about what the sound does for the area. And you can experience it in different ways. For the young kids, it's touch tanks and sections on the low country oyster. It'll deep dive into the history of oyster farming here. If it's blue crab season, then they're going to discuss blue crabs and the educational component and center of it. They've got exhibits both from the wildlife and art portion of it to feeding tanks for the local fish that populate the Port Royal Sound. You'll get to learn a lot about Chessie. Chessie is a sponsored O-Search. If you follow O-Search and the shark tracking and shark study boat that comes in and out of our area,
Okay.
um, Chessie is a tiger shark that was sponsored by the group, and you'll kind of learn about some of the tiger sharks that make up the waterways here.
That's so cool.
It is. It's really cool. It's really fascinating. But my favorite part about them is that they've really expanded their eco tours.
Okay.
People get an opportunity to get on the water and do it in an outdoor environment, which I think is more paramount now than ever. And
Right.
get on the water. If I was giving someone advice, and I think I've shared it before in the last episode, get to the water in Beaufort. That's where the magic happens for this beautiful place here. If you're looking to find that intercoastal lifestyle or just that intercoastal being, man, I'm telling you, get to the water. And Port Royal Sound Foundation, the Maritime Center, is on the water. It's got eco tours, kayak tours. They'll launch from there. It's great exploration, get great tours, great education. And, this is a free venture for guests that can partake. You will see people from all over come and learn about our estuaries that are in nearby where. But when it comes to the water and the pristine waters that would surround this area, you're not going to find anything better than the Port Royal Sound Foundation's work on that in keeping that water pristine. And so that's their work, that's their mission. The Maritime Center is a great visitor attraction. It's also a good local attraction, good education spot, and you're going to learn a little bit of something. Get on the water, take one of their kayaking tours, and if you're fortunate enough, go learn how to crab because they do offer crabbing lessons out there as well on their dock.
Oh, perfect. So you can get it all right there.
That is right.
That's awesome. What color is the water? I'm just trying to visualize it because it sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, so it's gonna be what I would call like a blue brown look. I don't want to call it brackish water, although people have a different term for
Yeah.
that. It's not crystal blue. There's too much churn, sand deposits, dirt deposits as far as it goes through. But
Which
um,
makes sense since it's a sound.
yeah, sure. But the water in general is mirrors that of the surrounding pluff mud, which will be an episode, I'm sure. And
I'm
some
very
of the what
curious about that, but
yeah,
we'll save that.
Spartina grass and the things that make up this area. I encourage people to go to see what the water looks like and the activities around spring in Beaufort and visit Beaufort Port Royal Sea Islands on Facebook and see some of the imagery that's happening now. And you're gonna get a great image if you've never been here before of what the surrounding scenes and settings and imagery looks like. If you have been here before, you sort of already have an idea, but it's a great reminder of just the beauty, the natural beauty of Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands. It is truly a magnificent place that retains a lot of the authenticity of what makes this one of the best low country destinations, but also one of the better small destinations in America. And we're very excited about this beautiful town.
can definitely hear the enthusiasm and love that you have for it, which is awesome. I think it's really great how passionate you are about it, and it really makes people want to go see it for themselves. Like I'm over here like, man, I just need to like get on Google and look at it again, even though I've been looking at it all the time from all of our conversations outside of the podcast. Because every time we like talk about what we're going to discuss in this podcast, I always like, oh, I have to go look that up. I have to see what this looks like. So
That's
it's
right.
really, really awesome to hear you talk about it and how passionate you are about it. So I love it.
Appreciate that. It is. It gets into your soul. It's really, really pretty magical place.
I definitely agree. It just keeps going up on my bucket list of places I need to go.
I understand.
Yeah. Well, Rob, do you have any other things you want to tell our listeners? Any other tips or tricks about crabbing, or any really cool things that they must see if they go visit the Port Royal Sound Foundation's Maritime Center?
Well, listen, like I've said, we're kind of an open book here. So if you have any questions or comments, I ask that you just reach out. Find us online at beaufortsc.org. Yeah, contact us. One of either myself or somebody else in the office will be able to answer your questions. You can always hit us up on social media and keep the conversation going there. And we have a good response to people's questions. People love to find out a little bit more about the coastal lifestyle, especially when it's cold, wherever they're at
Oh, yeah.
and their location, or given the nature of what we're experiencing these days, where people are just looking for that outside adventure a little bit. People kind of are tired of being cooped up, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
will. And at least I feel that way. And
I definitely do too.
yeah, and I think people are ready to experience, life a little differently. Maybe it gives a different reflection. I'll promise you this, and this is a promise that we have for our visitors that come to our area. Our goal is to make your experience meet your expectations.
That's fantastic.
It is, and it's something I can almost promise you will happen day in, day out here. And I think Beaufort has always been able to achieve meeting visitors' expectations, because I think people have a understanding of what smaller destinations, smaller areas, smaller towns in America have this
Right.
slower pace, or they don't have these amenities. And Beaufort's unique. We have a lot of local
I love
restaurants,
that.
a lot of great food. Um, a lot of small boutique shops and retail, and you can find this in downtown, in the heart of downtown, in the historic district, or you can find it out on the islands. And wherever you go, you're going to have an opportunity to embrace the culture a little bit further. So that's our invitation, and to come and discover the intercoastal lifestyle here in Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands. And our invitation to all listeners is open. Just hit us up and ask your questions, or we can help you find time to make your way to this part of paradise.
That's great. Thank you so much for being with us again today, Rob. We're excited about everything we talked about. And just getting to hear more about Beaufort.
Yep, look forward to our next conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Audio Boom or wherever you're listening. And we'll talk to you next time. This has been another episode of the Intercoastal Podcast, part of the Destination Marketing Podcast Network. Hosted by Natasha Lye and produced by the Relic team.